Well, now we have Eamon Dunphy here. Not quite over Zoom, but we have him on the phone here. Eamon, how are you doing?
I'm fine, Shane. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties, but they're very common these days.
Not at all. I was more worried that people would think I was spoofing that I never had you on at all in the first place.
I know. I'm delighted to be on, and there's no problem. Has he done that 1,000 press-ups yet?
He just finished 1,000 press-ups in the space of an hour and did it just inside the time. It's fairly good going and all for charity.
Yeah, no, it is good going. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad you didn't ask me to do it.
And Eamon, how are you getting on recently? All well with you?
Yeah, everything is good. I'm working. We can do our podcast for the stand from the house here where I have a studio, and I am I'm cocooned. Go for a little walk every day, but only just around the block. And thank God, at the moment, everyone is okay.
And I'm sure you're keeping on top of everything in the football world.
Yeah.
You see today that the UK are talking about maybe teams that could go back if all the players and staff got 3 tests each per week, which would amount to £30,000 per week. And obviously these massively wealthy clubs would be able to do that. Would you be happy with League of Ireland teams if it was possible? A couple of the top managers were talking about at least seeing the feasibility of it, and maybe Republic of Ireland qualifier matches. Would you be okay with it going behind closed doors?
Yes, I'd be okay with it going behind closed doors, Shane, but I don't think that's the only issue. Football is a contact sport, and therefore there's no way if someone on the pitch had the virus, that you could be guaranteed they wouldn't spread the virus, and that's a problem. So the only way I could see it happening, with the Premier League, there's about 700 or 800 million at stake in TV money. The only way it can happen, in my view, is if they go into isolation for 2 weeks before they start, then play the games, go back to isolation. Every team would have to do that, so you would be pretty certain that they didn't have the virus. And I don't know, really. It's a judgment call. It's a difficult call to make. Everyone would love to see football back, but in Spain, for example, and in France for sure, they've said no more football this year. It's a contact sport, and you have to be cognizant of all the other factors. For example, the example it shows to other people about how they behave. I know football lovers would love to see it. They wouldn't mind seeing it behind closed doors, but there's a lot of factors to be taken into consideration, and I think you'd have to be 95% plus confident that it wasn't a dangerous environment.
And in terms of the Premier League, Liverpool fans want this long wait over. How would you like to see the Premier League finished at the moment if things can't come back in the coming weeks or months?
I don't think you can finish it, Shane. It will have to finish as it is.
Would you award them the title and then whoever's in the relegation?
I think the relegated clubs have a case in law. I would think the clubs that are in the relegation positions, that they haven't had the opportunity to play their way out of those relegation positions. So I don't think you could have a winner, or I don't think you could have relegation. I think you just have to wait the season out, and it counts for nothing, because there's so much at stake. For the relegated clubs, it's 150 million they'd lose if they drop into the championship, and I don't think they'd do that without going to law and arguing that they hadn't had the chance to save themselves. So that's very, very tricky indeed. I think the other issue is Champions League places. Top 4 clubs qualify for next season's Champions League. How do you work that out, for example? So it's very, very tricky. There'll have to be some creative thinking. It will have to be agreed by UEFA and the Premier League clubs, and that's a matter for discussion, I'm sure, and negotiation.
You're obviously a famous football man, but I was always curious. Do you have what sort of a GAA background would you have had or exposure to it when you were a young man, or did you at all?
Very big. We were our house was a GAA house. My father and indeed my mother was a Limerick woman. She was big into the Limerick hurling team and the Mackey brothers in the past, back in the day. And my dad was first generation Dublin, but essentially Kilkenny background. So hurling was a big thing, and we followed Vincent's in football and hurling. They were very good at both, but superb at football. And we followed the Dublin hurlers, the Dublin footballers, and the Kilkenny hurlers.
Right.
And we followed them religiously. I was in Croke Park every Sunday.
Ah, brilliant. And would you have played much yourself?
No, I didn't have the opportunity because there wasn't a GAA club. The nearest GAA club to us was actually Vincent's, and I was way too small, I think, to play Gaelic football. I got a hurl once from my grandfather when I was 8 for my birthday, and I broke it the next day. So that was the end of that. The clash of the ash, and it was over. But I was a great follower. We were great followers. And my brother Kevin, my late brother, and my father and myself would go, and my grandfather, to Croke Park every Sunday in the summer.
Well, look, Eamon, you've been very good for coming on. Appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate that, and all the best, and hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Thank you very much, Shane.